You're listening to the Proposify Biz Chat with Kyle Racki, a podcast for entrepreneurs looking to scale. This episode is brought to you by Proposify, software that streamlines your proposal process, impresses clients, and helps you close more deals. Head to proposify.com to start your free trial today.
Hey everyone, I'm Kyle Racki, and this is episode 69 of the Proposify Biz Chat, a podcast where every week we're sharing growth lessons we're learning running Proposify. Welcome and thank you for listening. With me today, I have Sir Racki Ferris.
Hello, everybody.
You've been knighted, right?
No, I have not been.
Oh,
yeah.
Can I still refer to you as Sir Racki Ferris?
Wish.
Racki Ferris is the Chief Product Officer here at Proposify, and today we want to talk about everything related to product tours, demos. So, Racki, we were standing outside, we were talking about sales demos and how they differ from product tours, how they differ from onboarding. So for anybody running products or building SaaS products, this is we're going to share some of our thoughts around this. First of all, just to kind of give everyone context, we watched a webinar yesterday from Dan Martell, and it was all about how to rock a demo. So really good if you're a founder, sort of in early stages, and you're doing all the demos, you'd want to pay attention to this, but also if you have salespeople who do demos for your SaaS product, you'd also want to think about this. And really kind of the takeaway here and what we've been learning as we've been growing our sales team is that demos should be fairly short. They shouldn't be long, hour-long demos. You shouldn't be running through tours of your product. And you also shouldn't just be an answer taker where you're the client or the lead is just saying, does your product do this? Does it do that? And you're just saying yes or no. You should really take control of the call and have questions that you're asking the client. And so as we were talking about this, about how to take control of the demo, how to run through the top features that will solve their problem, we sort of started talking about how do personalized one-on-one demos, how do they really differ from product onboarding? Because obviously you're going to have some kind of in-app onboarding. So if you guys log into any new product, you probably see something that walks you through the product, explains certain features, shows you the first steps to do to start getting value out of the product. Where do we go from there?
Where do we go from there? Well, we were relating like demos, like a sales demo where you're trying to find out what the potential customer wants, what they're actually looking for, what problem they're actually looking to solve, and then address those points. And then relating that to onboarding or initial onboarding, where when someone comes into your product, you don't know what they've already heard, so you kind of want to reiterate those main value propositions right off the top, because they could have spent hours on your marketing site and they'll just want to skip through it, or they could just be invited, they're just interested, so it's always an opportunity to resell the value proposition of your product.
And this is where I think we get into some gray areas, because if you think of onboarding as being kind of a tutorial on how to use the product versus are you communicating the value proposition, are you showing the top feature benefit, I mean, where does it become just a tour? Where does it become onboarding, and why does any of that matter?
Well, the difference between a demo and a product tour is a demo is about high level items, again, the value that you're offering, and a product tour is about how do I get to that value, how can I capitalize on that value that your product offers.
Because we've experienced this before, and we've talked in another podcast and blog post about how we redesigned our onboarding in our product Proposify. It's always an ongoing process of optimizing and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And I think maybe what we've learned since our last onboarding update was that if it's too long, people eventually opt out or they stop completing it. And at what point do you force them to complete it, or at what point do you let them just skip out, in which case you don't really get any of that data on, okay, did they actually finish it? Do they understand how the product works? What did we learn?
Well, what we've learned is that you do want to keep it short, and our next version of it's going to be iterative. So there's going to be one phase, a second phase, a third phase, and it's going to be teaching you as you're going through it. So we're not going to try and cover the whole breadth of the software in one go. We want to cover it as you're investigating it, as you're discovering it. So when you click on a new section for the first time, we're going to ask you, do you want to learn more about this? And then if you do, then we're going to show you around a little bit. We're not going to show you every little thing about it. Some of it you will have to discover yourself, but we want to make it so that you welcome this information instead of dreading it.
I think for me, the ultimate onboarding is always analytics software. If you can get to the simplicity of analytics onboarding, I think you've won. And it's difficult when you have a product that's inherently more complicated. But the beauty of what I love about analytics software is that when you first create an account and log in, it never walks you through all the reports you can generate. It only has one thing, which is here's the code snippet, and here's how to send it to your developer if you don't know how to install it on your website. If you do, great, do it, but here's, send this to your developer. And all they want you to do is step one, just paste the code in your website, and so we can start tracking it.
Yeah, it's just activation. They're only focused on activation. That's all they want. You come in, and for that type of product, absolutely, because they can't get any other value until they do that step. So that's the major first benchmark. So that works very easily for them. If you have a product where there are many different activation, checkpoints, it can get a little more difficult, and that's where you have to control how much you're going to lead them through them, how much information you give them right off the bat, because with a one-step activation, they only have one step.
Yeah.
So how do you, show them there's 5 different ways to do something without, losing their interest or just bothering them?
For example, we used to think about Proposify as being, okay, they came to the software because they want to send a proposal. And so we kind of pushed people into, here's how you choose a template, here's how you edit it, here's how you send it. And later we kind of found that does work sometimes. Sometimes that's what people want. But also there are people who are actually more qualified leads in the sense that they're actually trying out Proposify because they know they want it. They don't need to be sold. And those guys behave a little differently sometimes. They may not have a proposal they need to write right now. They're going into the content library or the templates, and they're actually setting up their account for long time usage as opposed to just going in and sending a proposal. So I guess we've realized that it's complicated, and there's usually not just one sole reason or one key area or function that people do when they sign up for an account.
What's interesting about that is that we don't know, and after talking about the demos, one of the first things you want to do is find out what they're looking to achieve. I mean, it's the exact same thing. Why not just ask them when they come in? What are you looking to get from this? Like some sort of am I looking to send proposals? Boom, we'll show you how to do that. Am I looking to have intricate templates set up so that my team can use? Boom, show them how to do that. I'm looking how to control my team accessing documents. Boom, show them how to do that. Why don't we just ask the question instead of trying
Why don't you just tell me the movie you would like to see?
Yeah.
That's a good idea, actually. I love that just talking about this, we're like, Ricky's jotting down notes on what to do. No, that's brilliant. I mean, it's hard because when you, some SaaS products are completely sales driven. You can't sign up for a tour or a trial. You need to talk to a salesperson in order to use the software. And then some is completely self-service. You can't talk to a salesperson. I think there's definitely become some complexity and a little bit of nuance when you have something that's both. You can sign up for Proposify and sign up for a free trial and use it and convert when you're ready. That's how the majority of people use it. And salespeople will kind of go after bigger accounts or people who have a little bit more complexity in their needs, and those are the people that they try to get on demos. So there's definitely two models, almost two ways of thinking about it.
Yeah, you just want to make sure that you account for that. I mean, we have many different templates for many different industries. It's the same thing. There's different, markets, different kinds of people who want to use your software. You want to account for the do-it-yourselfer, you want to account for the person who wants to literally learn everything about your product, with someone helping them before they go in. It's the comfort level, it's confidence level.
Yeah. There's almost like the difference between the blog post where you announce a new feature. You describe that differently than you do in the knowledge base where you actually walk through how to use a feature and then maybe include a video or something. There's definitely something there. There's one where you're just selling a feature and you're trying not to get into the nitty-gritty of here are all the options. If you want to customize this, click here. If you want to customize, that's a knowledge base to me, right? A blog post or a tour is really just the high level, this is the feature that solves problem X. It's not, here are all the options and here's all the ways you can customize it. That's like I don't know, that's a knowledge base. Like that's something that customer support or knowledge base can help with.
Well, the interesting thing is we often view onboarding just as the big modal that comes up and the tooltips, like the big tooltips with, step 1 of 5, you click through it as you're learning all the things. But there's also another mechanism, which I think that we're really going to delve deeply into Proposify, which is microcopy and just a little tooltips when you're hovering over a button, just to let you know exactly what it does. I think there's a lot of power to that where, you can have the onboarding sales pitch, value proposition, and then you can actually have a miniature product tour just with microcopy and good tooltips.
Yeah.
Good information in the product available without Clippy.
And I'm glad you brought up microcopy, Ricky, because that's also something I wanted to talk about. Microcopy is, I think, maybe one of the most it's one of the most misunderstood parts of product design. Because where does it fall? Is it something where you hire a copywriter or a marketer to write that copy? If you're a UI designer or a UX strategist, are you writing that? And I think because there's no clear definition of who is the person who writes in-app copy or microcopy, so we're talking button labels, tooltips, lines of text, error messages, that kind of thing. I think what we've seen is that people come at it 2 different angles. So if you get a marketer or a copywriter who's used to writing sales copy or marketing copy, they tend to come at it a little bit too jokey almost. Not necessarily jokey, but they can come at it from the angle of they're actually just kind of writing quippy, clever type of writing.
That's enjoyable to read.
Stuff that's enjoyable to read.
That's good to read.
Yeah.
As opposed to a UI guy or a developer who writes it, and they write it to be functional. Like, this is what it does. And there's a middle ground there. I think it lies more on the development side of it, where it needs to be just straightforward exactly what it does, but it can't speak in dev speak. It's got to speak in customer speak.
Exactly. Like, 404 error message, right? It's like, I think depending on who your audience is, of course, but if your audience is not developers or people who are overly web savvy and you just put this is a 404 error, an older person using the site or a non-technical person using the site could be like, 404, what does that mean? It's just like beep, boop, 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 beep, as opposed to, hey, the page you're looking for can't be found. We don't have this, like the page doesn't exist. That's more understandable to the average user. So I think, developers tend to, number one, I think developers tend to think people read more than they do. Because I know Jonathan.
I think everyone who writes thinks people write more than they do because people don't read.
No.
I don't. I know that. And from my experience with product feedback, people don't read as well.
Well, people don't even read articles that they clicked on to read, let alone text that pops up in an interface where they're really just trying to use something and trying to get a result as opposed to they're not there to read. So I would always say with microcopy, whatever you write, cut it in half.
Yeah. And
general rule.
And think about the context too. Is this a pleasurable bit of microcopy? Is it informative? Or is it like, oh shit, we screwed up big time on the product back end side and we just screwed them out of a couple hours of time? Yeah. Like, you really want to make sure that your copy addresses the context of the situation.
There's an old, so context, yes, and I want to get back to that in a moment. I was going to say that there's that old saying in UX or UI design, which is that like if an interface is like a joke, and if you have to explain it, you've failed, right? So if I think as a general rule, if you're writing microcopy and it's explaining what the interface could tell you, then rethink the interface, right? If you're saying, click over to the list of items on the right and drag and drop them over to the left, there's much more intuitive ways of showing that don't involve language, animated GIFs, just making the interface intuitive, that like with icons that that you would have to drag. So I was like, think of it as walking through an airport. You're not going to see long strings of like a paragraph of text saying, if you want to head over to departures, make sure you head over to the staircase on the right. And then, you know what I mean? It's all icons. It's like, okay, plane in an upward motion leaving, I'm going there. You're going to process that faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that goes with the the idea that if someone has to read something, instead of just understand it from an icon, you've caused them more friction because they actually had to use their brain more. And you really want to reduce that because you want your customers using their brain for their work, like to excel at their job, not figuring out your UI.
Yeah. Cognitive load, right? Like we have a limited amount. Every time we make a decision, it's taxing on us. It's actually depleting our supply of brain juice. And so like the more you pull that out of people, then the less they have for the stuff where you really need them to use their brain, you know?
Yeah, to execute the work they came in there to do.
Yeah.
Because if you tire them out before they even get to their work, that's going to reflect on your brand because they're just going to start thinking of it as a tiresome activity to do.
Yeah.
And that's not good because that's not going to create loyalty.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned context, and I think that's huge. We talk about context a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, microcopy should always recognize. This is why I think that it's important if you're writing microcopy or if you're getting a writer to do that. They should have an interactive prototype or they should be using the real app as they're writing it because they're understanding like, okay, I was over here and then I wanted to do this. So they're understanding the context of where I was, where I am now, and where I need to go. Mm-hmm. And it's easy if you're just looking at screenshots or wireframes or mock-ups to just kind of write what you see on the page now without considering where you were.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really know how to expand on that. I mean, if you just need to know where they're coming from, what they're doing, and where they're going, where they are in their process, and that'll help you write and even design better for the user.
Absolutely. So what have we learned? I think sales demos, keep them short, keep them focused on high-level problem solution. Don't get into the nitty-gritty and try to take control of the situation. Tours versus onboarding. What do you think?
It's the end of day Friday. I'm on processing here, but I mean, tours and onboarding. A tour is showing you exactly where to click, and onboarding is showing the value you can get from the different features. So it's kind of the middle ground between a demo and a tour is what onboarding should be.
Yeah. Versus a tutorial, or a knowledge-based article, which is here's every available option. So if you're looking for something super specific and super, it's not everybody is going to need to know this, but if you do, here's where to do it. Mm-hmm. That should be, as much as possible, be reserved, I think, for tutorials and knowledge-based articles and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the takeaway that I have from this is going to do a little mock-up and do some testing on asking people what they're looking to get out of it and see if we can base onboarding on those different paths.
Absolutely.
And see if there's any success with that. Because then part of it is, do they know what they want?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm looking for something in a store and I'm looking for a particular thing and I'm actually looking for a solution, but I know that this thing does it. If I talk to someone, I'll find out it's actually not this, it's something else. So, I mean, it's a test. It's definitely worthy of a test.
Yeah. I mean, a store is a great analogy. I think about that a lot because it's baked into e-commerce for starters, right? We talk about carts and checkout and all that kind of thing. If you wanted to keep going further with that, a search box is going and asking, a representative, hey, where do I find this? And categories or clicking on categories is like going like, oh, okay, that lane over there is that department is furniture or what have you. I think it's similar to a SaaS product because somebody coming into a store may know exactly what they want. They may know sort of what they want, or they might have no goal at all and they're just walking around looking at stuff and you have no idea, right?
No, well, if you don't ask, you'll have no idea.
Exactly. Ask. And show, don't tell with Microcopy. Yeah. Hope that was interesting for you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe so you get more of this content every week. And thanks for joining me, Ricky.
No problem.
We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Proposify Biz Chat with Kyle Racki. For more episodes, check us out on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Click subscribe to get updated on the latest episodes, and be sure to rate and review.